I ruined my front lawn 3 years ago by dethatching at the worst possible time, and it cost me almost $200 in seed and about 6 weeks of watching bare dirt where grass used to be. That one mistake taught me more about dethatching than 10 years of just doing it on autopilot ever did. So today I am walking you through 10 things you absolutely need to know before you dethatch your lawn, because every single one of these came from a lesson I learned the hard way, or from research that completely changed my approach. And I will tell you right now, the last tip on this list is the one that genuinely changed how I think about dethatching altogether. I spent years assuming I knew what I was doing, and it turns out I had the whole concept backwards. Plus, stick around after the main list because I have got a bonus tip for you that most people have never even considered, and it can make the difference between a lawn that bounces back in 2 weeks and one that struggles for months. Here's the thing. Dethatching is one of those lawn care tasks that sounds straightforward, right? You just rip out the dead stuff and let your lawn breathe. But the reality is that thatch is not just dead grass sitting on top of your soil. It is a layer of living and dead organic material, stems, roots, runners, all woven together between the green blades and the soil surface. A thin layer of thatch, about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch, is actually beneficial. It insulates roots, retains moisture, and cushions foot traffic. The problems start when that layer gets thicker than 3/4 of an inch, because then it becomes a barrier. Water cannot penetrate. Fertilizer sits on top. Disease and insects find a cozy home. Once I understood that thatch is not inherently bad, that it is about managing the thickness, everything clicked into place. So let's walk through it together, starting with something that trips up almost everyone. The first thing I wish somebody had told me is that you need to actually check whether your lawn needs dethatching in the first place. I know that sounds obvious, but for years, I just dethatched every single spring, because I thought that is what you do. It is like mowing, you just do it, right? Wrong. Here is how you check. Take a garden knife or even a sharp trowel and cut a small wedge out of your lawn, about 3 inches deep. Look at that cross section. You will see the green grass on top, then a brownish spongy layer, then soil. That spongy layer is your thatch. If it is 1/2 inch or less, you do not need to dethatch. Leave it alone. It is actually helping your lawn. If it is between 1/2 inch and 3/4 of an inch, you are in the watch zone. Over 3/4 of an inch, that is when you need to take action. I checked 6 spots in my lawn last spring and found that only the backyard near the fence line actually had a thatch problem. The front yard was fine. So I saved myself a full day of unnecessary work and a whole lot of stress on perfectly healthy grass. Always measure before you rip. Now this next one ties directly into that, because even if your lawn does need dethatching, the timing of when you do it makes or breaks the entire process. I made the mistake of dethatching my cool season lawn in the middle of July one year. It was 92 degrees outside and the grass was already stressed from the heat. I basically gave my lawn a major surgery during the worst possible recovery conditions. For cool season grasses like Kentucky bluegrass, tall fescue, and perennial ryegrass, the best window is early fall, typically late August through mid-September, or early spring when soil temperatures are consistently hitting about 55 degrees Fahrenheit. The grass is actively growing during those periods, which means it can recover quickly. If you are growing warm season grass like Bermuda or Zoysia, you want late spring to early summer when those grasses are in their peak growth phase. The key principle is simple. Dethatch when your grass type is growing its strongest, because you are essentially putting your lawn through a stressful event, and it needs the energy to bounce back. Trust me on this one. Timing is everything. Here is one that seems almost too basic, but I promise it matters more than most people realize. You need to mow your lawn down before you dethatch. And I do not mean just your normal mowing height. I am talking about bringing it down to about 1.5 to 2 inches for cool season grasses, roughly half your normal mowing height. Do this gradually though, not all at once. Drop it down over 2 mowings so you do not shock the turf. The reason is practical. When your grass is at its normal 3 to 3.5 inch height, the dethatcher blades or tines cannot reach the thatch layer effectively. They just chew up the top of the grass and skip right over the problem. I ran my power dethatcher over my lawn once without mowing first, and pulled up mostly green grass blades. The thatch layer was barely touched. Bag or rake up those clippings before you dethatch too, because you want a clean surface for the machine to work on. It is simpler than you think, but it makes a huge difference in how effective the whole process is. Now, before we keep going, I want to mention something for those of you who are also dealing with weeds alongside your thatch problem. I put together a guide called Larry's 30-Day Weed Kill Protocol, and it is specifically designed for homeowners who are tired of battling clover, crabgrass, and all those stubborn weeds that keep coming back every single season. It lays out the exact day-by-day system I follow, including which products to use, when to apply them, how to identify the 7 most common lawn weeds, and how to prevent them from returning. It covers pre-emergent timing, post-emergent techniques, spot treatments, and a full seasonal calendar. Right now it is just $17, down from $47, and you can grab it by scanning the QR code on screen or clicking the link in the description at lawncarelarrybooks.com. It is written the same way I talk in these videos, no fluff, just the plan. All right, let's keep going, because we have still got some real game changers coming up. So you have checked your thatch, you have timed it right, you have mowed down. Now you need to choose the right tool for the job, and this is where I see people waste a lot of money. There are 3 main options: a manual dethatching rake, a power dethatcher sometimes called a power rake, and a vertical mower or verticutter. For a small lawn under about 2,000 square feet with mild thatch buildup, a good dethatching rake with curved tines will do the job. It is a workout, I will not lie, but it gives you the most control. For anything bigger, you want a power dethatcher. You can rent one from most home improvement stores for around $70 to $100 a day. Here is the key detail though. A power dethatcher has spring tines that scratch and pull thatch to the surface. A verticutter has rigid blades that actually slice into the soil. If your thatch is over 1 inch thick, a verticutter is the better tool because it cuts through that dense mat instead of just scratching at the top. I rented a power dethatcher for a 3/4 inch thatch problem and it worked perfectly. But when I used the same machine on my neighbor's lawn where the thatch was over 1.5 inches, it barely made a dent. He ended up needing a verticutter. Match the tool to the severity of the problem and you will save yourself time, money, and frustration. This next technique took me 2 seasons to figure out, and honestly I felt a little foolish when I finally got it right. When you run a power dethatcher or verticutter, you need to make multiple passes in different directions. I used to just go north to south, make 1 pass, and call it done. The lawn looked the same. Then I read a guide from the Penn State Turfgrass program that recommended making 2 passes minimum, the second one at a 45 to 90 degree angle from the first. When I finally tried this, the amount of additional thatch that came up on that second perpendicular pass was genuinely shocking. We are talking garbage bags full of material that the first pass completely missed. For severe thatch, some extension programs even recommend 3 passes. Set your blade or tine depth so it just reaches the bottom of the thatch layer, typically between 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch depth. Going deeper than you need to tears up healthy roots and crowns. Start shallow, check the results, and adjust from there. A little patience here saves a lot of heartache. Now, this one is going to sound counterintuitive, but hear me out. You should water your lawn the day before you dethatch, not right after. Here is why. When the soil has some moisture in it, the thatch layer loosens up and the tines or blades can pull it free much more easily. Think of it like trying to comb tangled hair when it is dry versus when it is slightly damp. Completely different experience. But you do not want the soil soggy. You want it moist about 2 to 3 inches down. A good test is to push a screwdriver into the ground. If it slides in smoothly with moderate pressure, your moisture level is right. If you have to really push it, give the lawn a good watering the evening before you dethatch. I skipped this step for years because nobody ever mentioned it, and I always wondered why some dethatching sessions went smoothly, while others felt like I was trying to rip up carpet. The moisture was the variable I had been ignoring. Here is one that pairs directly with the dethatching process itself, and I learned this the hard way after a particularly aggressive session on my side yard. You need to be prepared for what your lawn looks like immediately after dethatching. It is going to look terrible. I mean genuinely awful. Brown, torn up, thin, with bare spots everywhere. The first time I dethatched properly, my wife came outside and asked me what on earth I had done to the yard. I almost panicked and started throwing seed down that same afternoon. But here is the thing. If you timed it right and your grass is in active growth, it will recover. Cool season grasses typically fill back in within 3 to 4 weeks during fall growing conditions. The mistake people make is panicking and either overwatering, dumping excessive fertilizer, or doing something drastic to try to fix what looks like a disaster. Resist that urge. Your lawn is not dead. It is just exposed. The recovery is part of the process, and it happens faster than you think if you gave it the right timing window. This one I almost hesitate to share because it seems so simple, but it genuinely makes the biggest difference in how quickly your lawn recovers. After you dethatch, you need to rake up and remove every bit of debris from the lawn. Every single bit. I used to be lazy about this. I would pull up most of it, but leave a thin layer, figuring it would decompose and add organic matter back to the soil. Bad idea. That debris layer blocks sunlight and air from reaching the grass crowns that are trying to recover. It can trap moisture against the grass and invite fungal disease, especially in fall when temperatures start dropping into the 50s and 60s at night. I started using a leaf blower after raking to get the last bits off, and the difference in recovery time was noticeable. We are talking about a week faster fill-in compared to when I used to leave residue sitting on the lawn. Bag it, compost it, get it off the lawn. Your grass needs light and air right now more than it needs that organic matter. Now for something that completely changed my dethatching results and honestly made me feel a bit silly for not doing it sooner. After you dethatch and clean up all that debris, that is the single best time to overseed, top dress, and fertilize your lawn. You have essentially created the perfect seedbed. The soil is exposed, there are little grooves and scratches where tines ran through, and competition from dense thatch is gone. I used to dethatch in September and then wait until October to overseed because I thought the lawn needed time to recover first. 3 seasons of mediocre results before I finally tried combining them. The first time I overseeded immediately after dethatching, I got the thickest, most uniform germination I have ever seen. Put down a starter fertilizer with a ratio like 10-18-10 or something similar, at a rate of about 3 to 4 pounds per 1,000 square feet. If you are overseeding, spread your seed right into those dethatcher lines. Then top dress with a thin 1/4-inch layer of compost or screen topsoil. You are essentially taking advantage of all that disruption you just created instead of waiting for it to close back up. The key is doing it all in the same day if possible. Dethatch in the morning, clean up, overseed, fertilize, and top dress by the afternoon. Water it in gently and keep the soil moist for the next 2 to 3 weeks while germination happens. And now this last one is the one I mentioned at the very beginning. And I am not exaggerating when I say it fundamentally changed how I approach my entire lawn care program. For years, I was dethatching aggressively every single spring and fall, twice a year like clockwork. I thought I was being a good lawn steward, My lawn always looked decent, but it never looked great. The thatch just kept coming back, and I kept fighting it. Then I came across research from the University of Illinois Extension program that explained something I had never considered. Excessive thatch buildup is usually a symptom, not the root problem. The real causes are things like over-fertilizing with high-nitrogen synthetic fertilizers, which push rapid top growth. Infrequent mowing, which leaves long clippings that decompose slowly. Soil compaction that limits microbial activity. And overwatering that keeps the soil too wet for the microorganisms that naturally break down thatch. Once I understood this, I completely changed my approach. I switched from 4 heavy synthetic fertilizer applications a year to a program that includes at least 1 annual application of a good quality compost top dressing and uses a balanced, organic-based fertilizer. I started mowing more frequently so clippings were shorter and decomposed faster. I aerated every fall to relieve compaction and improve microbial habitat in the soil. Within 2 seasons, my thatch layer went from consistently over 3/4 of an inch down to about 3/8 of an inch, and I only needed to dethatch once every 2 to 3 years, instead of twice a year. The time and money I saved was significant, but more importantly, my lawn was actually healthier because I stopped treating the symptom and started addressing the cause. If you take one thing away from this entire video, let it be this. Before you dethatch, ask yourself why the thatch is building up in the first place, and whether you can fix the underlying issue. That shift in thinking was worth more than any single tool or technique I have ever used. Now let me touch on a few common mistakes I see people make that these tips are designed to help you avoid. The first is dethatching a lawn that is already stressed from drought or disease. I did this myself during a dry August because I figured while I was out there, I might as well knock it out. The lawn took almost 8 weeks to recover instead of the usual 3 to 4. Always make sure your grass is healthy and actively growing before you put it through the stress of dethatching. The second is setting the dethatcher blades too deep. If you are pulling up chunks of soil and ripping out healthy root systems, you have gone too far. You should be pulling up brown, thatch material, not green crowns and white roots. Start shallow and gradually increase depth until you are just reaching the bottom of the thatch layer. The third one is something we all tend to do, which is dethatching too frequently. If you find yourself needing to dethatch every single season, that is your lawn telling you something else is wrong. Shift your focus to the cultural practices I mentioned: better mowing habits, appropriate fertilization, annual aeration, and you will find yourself needing to dethatch far less often. And here is that bonus tip I promised you at the beginning. After you dethatch and clean everything up, take a soil test before you apply any fertilizer or amendments. I know, soil testing sounds like something only golf course superintendents do, but you can get a basic kit from your local extension office for about $15 to $25, and it tells you exactly what your soil needs. Here is why this matters specifically after dethatching. When you remove that thatch layer, you have exposed the actual soil surface for the first time in possibly years. Any amendments you apply are going to have direct contact with the soil instead of being absorbed into that thatch mat. This is your best window to correct pH issues or nutrient deficiencies, because the products actually reach where they need to go. After my first post-dethatch soil test, I discovered my pH was down at 5.4, way too acidic for the Kentucky bluegrass I was growing. I applied pelletized lime at 50 pounds per 1,000 square feet, based on the test recommendation, and by the following spring the difference in color and density was something I had never achieved before. That one $15 soil test saved me from blindly throwing down fertilizer and amendments that my lawn may not have even needed. Take the test, follow the recommendations, and let the science guide you. Now, if you found these tips helpful and you want a complete system for tackling the weeds that tend to creep in after dethatching opens up your lawn, I really encourage you to check out Larry's 30-day weed kill protocol. It is the exact step-by-step plan I use every season, with the specific products, timing, application rates, and a day-by-day calendar that takes all the guesswork out of weed control. It also covers how to identify the 7 most common lawn weeds, so you know exactly what you are dealing with and how to prevent them from coming back. You can grab it for just $17 at lawncarelarrybooks.com. Link is right down in the description, or scan the QR code on screen. Trust me on this one, having a clear plan makes all the difference when you are trying to get ahead of weeds after a dethatch. So there you have it, 10 things I really wish I had known before I started dethatching my lawn all those years ago. Every single one of these came from real mistakes, real experiments, and real results on my own lawn. I would love to hear which of these tips you are going to try first, or if you have got a dethatching lesson of your own that you learned the hard way, drop it in the comments. Happy mowing, and I will see you in the next video.